oak, and she steered the whole house, her shaking self, in the direction that a rainbow was insinuating soft, the dullest tones of a weeping harpy in her ear. She could not help but help the house break a spine so much darker than her own. She broke green skin like Christians break bread. When Dorothy landed, Glinda did not just waltz, cocooned in pink cellophane to meet her blind, no, because I lived on the edge of her lower lip for a while, and I heard when she whispered to the girl, "Little lady, the harpy is the rainbow's sister, did you know? And she can rake talons through human flesh just as easily as her sister harvests that magic under human eyelids, darling. They are not so far apart, and you aren't either. Of warm skin against flickering dream, I remember Miss Gale. I remember how just the faintest little banshee of a smile took wing across her lips as the broomstick woman melted. I remember she was no innocent, who had just been told of a perfect infant flicked into her stomach by the hand of a giant, dove-shaped, distracted god. She was no white-haired child forced to let them eat cake to lose a cranium like you might lose a necklace. And she was not in Wonderland. Not Dorothy. Like an apocalypse rider, touched the foreheads of her monsters with just a fingertip till they fell, could dig it out amongst a dizzying collection of papers that are stuffed beneath my chest.
In fact. So, those were my poetry whores. They're about to go on shift inside the poetry brothel. That's building 410. It's the brick house right over here. The left side, you'll speak to a man in a hat and a vest named Antonius. He will sell you a poker chip for $5. You will give that poker chip to the poetry whore of your choice, and you'll enjoy a private reading in one of our upstairs bedrooms. I hope to see you there. Thank you, son. You will give that poker chip to him or her. These are the next poetry whores that are going on their shift. First, I'd like to introduce Oliver Durant.
And burned everything, sewn together kittens and everything. They kept the eruptions at bay, throats much swollen, gargled complaints, red-handed they burned everything. Sick children, they said, smeared yeast and burnt everything until rooms bare-walled and only the ghosts of contents, the ideas of posters outlined almost yellow, where they failed to paint, where they will paint now that it's over. Now
eggplant bruises, sewing my skin with my favorite color. And in my garden they grow in hungry, malignant shades. Mustard yellow, avocado green, the pregnant black of mold. And with your hands, you water them. You do not know that the little tendrils of their plant toes have penetrated my bones, snaking deeper that my pure white bones become more precious every day, as your children chisel them with the agonizing imagination of an archaeologist, who will one day...
Saw the yellow house where this inevitably ends, with my blood on your hands. You're a monster in reverse, a peach tree about to bloom. Take me under, entangled in roots. I revolt at being buried, but do love arms so.
The young male black bear made its way into Jeff Wheeler's garage and drank a bunch of his beer. Perhaps you have seen the footage. The clip ran on all those programs that are on at 7 o'clock p.m. after the national news. The black bear holds the beers between its two paws and then stumbles into a pegboard wall hung with tools. Jeff got pretty famous off of it, but what most people don't know is that he actually trained that bear to come in there and drink beer. That's how he was able to videotape it so well.
Okay. This is a sonnet. It doesn't have the rhyme scheme. I was looking for a poem I could read in mixed company. It's called Nude. It's 10 p.m. I'm out front watering the flowers. The sunflower, the butterfly bush, and the rose, all glistening in the warm dark. One of the husbands is taking out his trash. Somehow he gets to telling me the details about his buddy's trip to a nude beach. There are people who really shouldn't be there, he says. I mean, there are things you just don't want to see. He flashes me a knowing, young, and handsome smile. I smile back. No, I say, you're wrong. Your buddy's wrong. The beach isn't for him, it's for them. And I go in. In my room, I undress at the dark window, as I often do, running my hands over the one body I have known all my life. I, who was once young and beautiful, tell you, the body wants to be loved.
Eve, the only soul in all of time to never have to wait for love, must have leaned some sleepless nights alone against the garden wall and wailed, cold, stupefied and wild, and wished to trade in all of Eden to have but been a child. In fact, I gather that is why she leapt and fell from grace, that she might have a story of herself to tell in some other place.
There and hiss for praise. I was broken, and transitively, science was broken. Our together destroyed worlds. Oppenheimer brought black apples to our grave, and he said, "I told you so." But we all know love is a shallow pit of fingers. And he taught me to bring out my body in the night, measure myself against his intestines. Could my heart coil like his body? My God, he was stunning. Who could ever love me like that?
Speak to Antonius. He is the gentleman in the hat and the vest and no shirt. I'm proud to introduce my next shift of poetry horrors.
Body made of cotton rag map, lace artery interstate. Hands fall to her thighs as decoration. Insides blooming tool. If you pry inside her with good, cold spoons, a murder of crows migrating. Underneath her nail bed, cartography, woodcuts, forever wormy polk, chiffon, state lines, things that look like you. Whole quarries swallowing whales, jaguar songs. She sounds of crying days. When the solar eclipse comes, run. She is the brackish between of good and bad. Here is a diagram of the goddess. 1. Claws are a certain protein called grief. 2. Nails attached to wilted moons. 3. Breasts are caverns of flightless butterflies. 4. Velvet spleen without blood. 5. You. Thank you.
Themselves, like sweaters worn backwards, or blueberries with strawberry skins. See the 4 sharp tapered prongs of a spoon used to strum guitar strings made of fragile dragonfly wings. There are upside down rainbows under the bridge where the green of cynicism, the ruby of fury, the metallic rust of grudges, the heady azure of grief are reflected on the white dew on the thorns. All this where nothing is as it was thought, this inside-out universe of a hypercube gone mad.
Scholars and skeletons wail. She found it, asleep in cold hay in Denmark, disguised as the blasphemies of Bohm, as a quest for a carriage for the child she needed to emerge omnipotent, but did not. As a cry to recognize that to meet God you must pass through devil first. She was mystic mother Chantus whore, showed gratitude for each venereal disease, each moment of mental collapse, sacrificed sleep and a full stomach on her altar each morning when the clock struck 3, lusted after each caress of strange lover to bind her tighter to death. He came and gave that bind a name. D-A-D-A, Dionysius the Areopagite, a child's plaything, shampoo or mystic chaos, all a guttural shriek to action standing against itself, an alchemist's code of binaries, cracked revolution, language bomb, literature with a gun in hand. Black sun, white earth, and the softest song for those war disfigured, waiting for their eyes to grow back again. He was gasoline, drove each battle nightly to center stage where she chased them down her own throat, spat back up the real hell prophesied by saints she carried in her stomach, kept them clean by ripping her tongue out each night, letting it grow back steeped in the silent language of fish, the only creatures she could touch. In her silence, she sees she is the skull of the 300-year-old woman he fell in love with, painted flowers on its cheeks and set on top of her altar. That night, she led cabaret mass as a cubist priest. The skull spoke with grandmother tongue. The big drum banged on its own. The masks spun off the walls and danced solo. Only she knew these things. Only she will ever know these things. That they stirred angry old gods those early mornings. That those gods would eat the two of them, spew them back out. He, a martyr who would die with a hole in his stomach. She, a fairy tale crone who would have to write out of existence every moment they touched the face of it. The god who carves words on flesh stages.
Say something, but everyday evil is banal. I wanted to tell you sex shouldn't be like jabbing at a blue light special toy bin. I feel you splayed on the couch of my womb, pointing your finger, telling me to wrap in tinsel and gold velvet, to sit under the tree till morning with my breasts exposed. Still, when you leave, my curtains, discreet, have lifted you inside. So when the wind, lulled by a passing car, billows out the middle as a pregnant breast, your scent spreads soft the walls like murmur, like leaving the radio going for the dog.
We were beautiful, but annihilating. As simple as a person's gait, the shapes, gestures, hands take. Wrapped our mouths around the words like a weapon in memory we can't seem to stick to missing. A slickness under our tongues, nostalgia creeping in like a dream we can only remember the luster of. That stillness in our hearts that has us both by the throat. We want to revision. We want to write sentences with our eyes captured in their dialect, our smiles seeping through their syntax. We want to hold hands inside, burying this secret in a ribcage, so we are not responsible for knowing it anymore. Let it leaven with everything else we've stuck in there and left for breath to take. To quit a backslide like this, learning what we keep with lettuce and how we detonate. The more you are carved out, the more you can hold.
The whittling, the scratching, the gouge isn't enough. I'm leading you to the gallows as the queen of
The
hearts.
whittling, the scratching.
Maybe now you'll do what
gouge
you're told.
isn't
The
enough.
more you are carved
I'm
out,
leading
the
to
more you can
gallows
hold.
As the queen of hearts. Maybe now you'll do what you're told. The more you are carved up, the more you can hold.
My axe fillets thigh after thigh. You're wearing my hips like a hockey mask. Now you're beginning to fit the mold. The more you are carved out, the more you can hold. The stump of a tree and the scream of a saw. 1,000 faces litter my path. If you saw, there will be sawdust, I'm told. The more you are carved out, the more you can hold.
The more you are carved out, the more you can hold.